Good evening, this is Bell Geode, and we are back with some more Aerofly FS2. Now I'm doing this as kind of a follow-on to my first look of Aerofly 2 because there were a number of things that I actually did get incorrect. And I'd kind of like to set the record straight there based on what I now know after a few more days flying around in this simulator, or sim light if you prefer. So, as you can see, we are in the Dash 8 Q400, which I don't know if I've ever told you guys, but it's actually one of my favorite commuter type planes. When I first started doing FS 2004 or FS9, the sum, this was the aircraft that I would probably fly the most until I switched over to FSX and got into all different kinds of aircraft. But yeah, part of the reason why I'm using this is because I was incorrect in my last video on some of the things that I had said. So, for example, flight plans. I mentioned that we really didn't have a way of adding in flight plans. I was totally incorrect on that. I discovered there's a navigation page, which should be popping up right now, that will actually allow you to put in a flight plan complete with all the various nav aids. So yeah, we're going to be using this flight plan to fly today from San Francisco International Airport over to South Lake Tahoe, or KTVL. And I figured this would be the perfect plane to do it in, because the other thing that I was slightly incorrect on is the fact that you can't do cold and dark startups. I am aware of a mod for the default Cessna 172 that will allow you to do completely cold and dark startup. However, for this particular plane, it is not quite there yet. So you'll notice all of my instruments and everything are currently on. This is as cold and dark as the Dash 8 Q400 is going to get for right now, and right now being October 2017. So I don't know when exactly you're watching this video, but it might have changed by then. Okay, but you can do a pretty decent startup sequence with this, which I am going to do. And then we're going to take off to the west, and we're going to head out, like I said, to Tahoe. And then we'll come in on runway 18 there, and that should be enough of a second look to give you an idea how this thing functions. So just to forewarn you, it's not entirely what you would call a study sim, but for a sim that's basically just starting out and adding a lot of new features with every update, I would say that they have a pretty good starting place. Alright, so without further delay, let's go ahead and see if we can get our engines started up. So I've taken the liberty of taking off the control lock. The control lock usually fits above the throttle to prevent the throttle movement. You'll see it right here. So yeah, that's off. We do want our parking brake on. Now hopefully my mouse cursor is also being recorded. I know OBS is kind of weird about that. Sometimes it'll record it, sometimes it won't. But hopefully it is. Either way, we've got the parking brakes on. Now I should also mention before we go any further, the FMS or the FMCs, the flight management computers, do not work in this thing. There is no way to actually click any of the buttons on there to enter in routes or whatnot. So you do everything from that navigation page that I just showed you. The comms and navs do work. However, since there's no AI traffic, it's a little bit pointless for me to even try and get into that. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't checked if they've modeled things like ATIS, or if you can hear the Morse code when you punch in like a VOR or something like that. That's something that I'll do at a later time. I just kind of want to get this flight done with here. Okay, now the one thing we are going to want to do, where it says spoilers here, right now it's set to flight. We need to set it to taxi. And that'll put our spoilers in while we're on the ground. It will automatically switch over to flight once we take off. Alright, now I've taken the liberty of setting everything up the way that it would be if we just had the ground power turned on. So right now we've got the external power on, which is the switch to the far right. We've got the main bus tie on. The generators are currently off. All the batteries are on. and we are pretty much set to start up the APU. So that's going to be our first assignment. There is a power switch for the APU. I'm going to click that. It's going to run through a little sequence of lights here. There we go. And then I'm going to click the second switch to start it. Give it a few seconds. That light will eventually extinguish itself, and then you will see a green light over by where it says power. Give it a few seconds to pop up. There it is. Okay, so now that that's on, we can assume that the APU is currently running. So we're going to go ahead and turn on the APU generator as well as the bleed air. We will need both of those on in order to start these engines. Cabin pressure, I'm not sure if it is modeled, but here is where it would sit anyway. There is a way to put in the landing altitude, which I've already taken the liberty of doing since we know that Tahoe is over 6,000 feet above sea level. So all of that's already been punched in for us, and we're ready to go there. All right, so let's see if we can get engine 1 started. We've got the main knob here, so we're going to turn that to norm. And then we're going to left click on the switch to the far side here, the select switch. And then hit the start button. Okay, so according to our engine gauge, that is definitely starting to go up. We can also look outside. See the props turning there. Okay, we're going to need to get the propellers to feather and the throttle to flight idle. Okay, so now that we've got fuel going and now that we got our props in a feathered position, everything should fire up. We're going to want to do the same thing for the second prop. So let's go ahead and hit this switch here. And we'll right click on the select switch to the right of it and then hit the start button. Now there's a way that we can see it from the other side. All I have to do is change our view. That sound indicates that we've got a good start. And yes, I can confirm there is a prop turning. All right. Oh, incidentally, when you switch to the co-pilot side, yeah, you actually get to see a pilot there. He looks nothing like me at all. All right, but we're back in the pilot seat now. And as you can see, I still got a whole bunch of caution and warning lights on. We're going to be taking care of that in a moment. One thing I neglected to do, however, I neglected to turn on our beacon light. So we'll hit that real quick. And our nav light. Let's go outside for a second and make sure everything is in place. Okay, from the looks of it, it looks like everything is in order. We've got our nav lights on, we've got our beacon lights on. So I kind of did that out of order there, sorry about that. Okay, now that we've got that on, we can turn off the APU. So we'll hit the bleed air, we'll hit the gen, and we'll hit the power. There we go, everything's off there. The external power we can also turn off. So that's the AC side. And that's the DC side. We also need our generators on, so generator 1 and generator 2. And that was done out of order. We really should put the generators on first before we turn off the external power. But everything's good to go, so I'm not going to complain about it. Alright, but our generators are still not exactly powering us up because we need to get our prop pitch up to where it says minimum. There we go. Okay, so you'll notice that got rid of all of the caution and warning lights except for one. The last one that's still on is the parking brake light because we already have that set. Alright, so while we're waiting for these engines to warm up here, let's go ahead and set our autopilot real quick. Now, my cruise altitude for this hop is going to be about 20,000 feet, or Angels 20 if you're Navy inclined. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit altitude select. And then we're going to turn the knob until we get it up to 20,000. Right now it's at 8, 10, 18. There we go, 20,000 feet. I think that should be sufficiently high enough for us to get over the mountains that come before we actually get to Lake Tahoe. Alright, we need to make sure our yaw damper is on. Yes, it's got both the little arrows on either side and they're both lit. HSI select should be pointing to the left. It is. And on the primary flight display, we need to make sure that it says FMS1. It does, in pink or purple writing. I might also want to set our VNAV, but before I do that, I will want to set our lateral nav as well. So let me go ahead and click that on. You'll notice our flight director starts up and it's already giving us our takeoff pitch, so to speak. Okay, so all we will need to do once we take off is basically just hit the autopilot switch and it should take over from there. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to set our heading to runway heading, which we know in San Francisco the way we're heading is 280. So we'll move that over here. Alright, right about there should be good. Just in case we need to do like a heading hold on our way out before engaging the autopilot to navigation mode. We can also set our speed. You can see our VREF speeds are already in, so we're going to be aiming for 122 knots as our rotation speed. V2 will be 125. And we can also set our speed bug for an actual speed after we take off, which I'm going to manually control that, and then once we start getting going, I will change it around and so on. Okay. I think everything is pretty much set, so let me go ahead and turn on our taxi lights. Okay, taxi light should be on. I do not know if this thing has fully modeled dynamic lighting. I should be seeing a beam of light coming out from the landing gear at the nose. I don't. I don't know if that's because the sun is about to rise or if it's just not modeled, but if that is the case, well, that is the case. The other thing I was incorrect on in my first look video, I said that the clouds have shadows cast on the ground. That was incorrect. What I was seeing was actually whatever was baked into the ortho photos. The clouds in this sim do not cast shadows. Really hoping that changes. I'd love to see them get on board with like True Sky or something like that, because honestly, that's the wave of the future right there. I love the way the True Sky clouds look, especially in games like War Thunder. Okay. Before we get out of here, let's take a quick look at our flight plan. So as you can see, we are smack dab in the center there. And I'm going to zoom out. So we're going to be hanging a hard right. When we reach the waypoint Croit, we should be just past the Golden Gate Bridge in downtown San Francisco. SAC is Sacramento, so we're going to be passing there. And Colomb should be the start of our descent. This thing does also include top of climb and top of descent, incidentally. Once we get down to Colomb, we're going to descend to our approach altitude and see if we can come in at Tahoe. Winds are relatively calm, so I don't think we should have any crosswind approaches, but needless to say, landing this puppy is a little bit tricky. Hopefully I'll be able to nail it the first time around, because I'm really only recording this once. Okay, well, looks like the sun is about to come up, so let's see if we can beat it over to runway 28. Everything looks good. No caution and warning lights with the exceptions of the parking brake. So yeah, I would say we're good to go. Alright, so let's get the brakes off and we'll put flaps down to 1. There we go, 5 degrees flaps. Okay, I don't see any traffic to the left or to the right, which I didn't expect I would. So parking brake is off, and let's roll. Now I deliberately have the props still at minimum. I have not changed the pitch to full pitch yet. I'll do that once we get to the end of the runway for takeoff, but this thing is notorious for wanting to keep going. It will not stop. If I let it go, it could pretty much get us up to as fast as about 60 or 70 knots on the ground. Very difficult to control when that happens. So we're going to avoid that at all costs here. Alright, I'm thinking we probably should have gone to that next taxiway there. It's difficult to see in the dark. I think we're missing a bit of taxi lighting here. But that's alright, I'm just going to take this turn here and then hang a left. Okay, right here is good. I have noticed that the brakes on all of these aircraft are a little bit squirrely. I don't know if that's a deliberate design decision or if somebody just got a little bit too liberal with the brake coating, but to me it feels like they're a little too sharp, if you know what I mean. Alright, let's make a quick outside view and see if we are at our turn point just yet. Okay, so we're crossing runway 1 left and then runway 1 right, and we're just going to keep heading this way out towards the bay. Our airspeed, the lowest it'll show is 30 knots, so when I see it start going over 30 knots, I know we're taxiing way too fast here. But with this aircraft, you really do not want to put the throttles any lower than flight idle. Otherwise it can cut off the engines. We don't want that. Same thing for the pitch. We don't want to feather the prop pitch. Okay, so we're almost there, folks. We're almost there, and it looks like we are just about beating the sun. It'll definitely be coming up in a moment here. I kind of wanted to do this time of the day as a little bit different from what we did the last time where we went in the evening. And I'm taking the right-hand path here because if I were to go left, that will lead me to the other runway, the other parallel runway here. And we want this one, 28 left. Okay, now I am going to let it speed up just a little bit, just so it's not taking us 5 years to taxi all the way to the end of SFO. And you can already see the lighting and so on appearing on the cockpit spars. Alright, it says we're currently taxiing at 37 knots. That's a little too fast. Okay, here's the end of the runway, and here comes Mr. Sun. Oh, that glare is going to kill me. It's really not that bad inside the Oculus Rift. It's not blindingly bright. It just gives the impression of being blindingly bright because of the art assets that they've used for that. But here we are, runway 28 left. So we've got the parking brakes on, and let's go ahead and get everything all set up. So this, we're going to zoom it back in. Right there should be good for the time being. Okay, our landing lights. Oh, hold on, something's happening here. Okay, I'm kind of glad this happened because number one, this will also show you the navigation screen, how you access it from in the game, and number two, it will call attention to a known bug. When you're in VR, the upper right-hand corner of the screen will pop open the navigation thing. I really don't think that's supposed to happen. I think your mouse is supposed to center itself depending on where you're looking. So yeah, that did not do the trick. But at least you have an idea as to what happened. So let's get back in the cockpit, and I believe we were in the process of getting prepped. Okay. So now that we're back in here, we'll get these lights on, landing lights. I'll leave the taxi lights on for the time being. We'll switch our strobes on. There we go. The clickable areas for this inside of VR is a little bit odd. Not gonna lie, it's a little bit odd. Okay, I want to get my packs on as well, so that way our passengers will be comfortable. So bleed air 1, bleed air 2. I'm sure you can hear the AC going. Pretty good, pretty good. And we'll also need to turn off our lighting in the cabin or in the cockpit. So we'll turn off the dome light. Don't need you. And we'll also turn off those bright lights over by the instrument panel. So there we go. Okay, so flaps are down 1. Autopilot is ready to go. All we'll need to do is just simply click it. And we already have takeoff trim set. It seems like it does it automatically the moment you get into the aircraft. All right, I think we are just about ready. I feel ready, so let's take off here. Brakes off. Go ahead and line up. It really is an easy aircraft to fly once you actually get everything set up the way that it should be. And then of course once you go airborne, it's really a joy. A landing, like I said, can be a little bit tricky. However, that's why you practice. It's like anything else, practice makes perfect. Okay, I'm not going to put the parking brakes on, but I do have brakes down. And it's going to be time to go throttles up, so we'll do the prop pitch first. And here we go. Brakes off. Throttle to full. Now I could always use like toga power. However, I kind of like doing things manually on takeoff and landing. Alright, V speeds are coming quickly. Here we go. V1, VR, V2. We are up. Positive rate, gear up. Flaps up. And we say goodbye to San Francisco International for now and head on our path. Okay, autopilot, I'm gonna need you on now. There we go. So remember that we already set the altitude select to 20,000 feet, so that's where it's going to take us. And we are already on nav, so we're good to go there. So now we can take a quick look at San Francisco in the morning on our way up. And I'm going to pull our power back a little bit here. Okay, there we go. So we're just around 200 knots, which I think should be sufficient for this climb. We'll increase it as we make our way away from the city and start heading towards our destination. But right now we still got a lot of climbing to do before we get up there. Okay, so after takeoff checks, we'll just make sure everything is still looking good. Yes, it is. And there you can see downtown San Francisco over there. And of course the Golden Gate Bridge in that direction. Matter of fact, let's take a quick look from the outside. Okay, so there's another view of the Golden Gate Bridge, looking beautiful in the sunrise. And we really can't see downtown much. It's down there somewhere. Maybe you can see it if you look real close. Alright, what are we looking like here? So we're just under 200 and we're just over 8,000. I'll need to figure out where it set our top of climb, so we're gonna zoom this out. Okay, so after we pass Croit Waypoint and start heading on the proper course, we'll reach top of climb. It looks like we're gonna be over 10,000 pretty soon. I'm gonna go ahead and kill the taxi lights right now. And we'll kill the landing lights in a few thousand feet here, or a few hundred feet actually, because we're already at 9,500. Go ahead and kill it now. Okay, landing lights are currently off, and there's one final look at the Golden Gate Bridge. Beautiful, beautiful. And there's Sausalito on the other side. Very nice, very nice. Okay, so less than 10,000 feet to go to cruise. And we are already starting to lose a little bit of airspeed as we rise. So what I'll be doing now is changing our pitch. We're going to pitch the nose down a little bit so that way we can increase speed. That's one way to do it. The other way we can do it is we can set an IAS, or an airspeed, indicated airspeed, and it will climb based on trying to keep that speed. So it'll trim the aircraft up or down as need be to do so. I'm sure you already know how this works. If you're watching this, chances are you're probably no complete stranger to the Dash 8. But I will tell you some of the other features that they have in here. You'll notice the co-pilot side. The co-pilot has something else on their MFD. And these are accessed by the buttons that they have down here. So I'll give you an example. We could set it to the fuel system, and it will show up right there. So right now it's telling us how much fuel we've got on board. Let me remind you, fuel systems have not been implemented in this sim. That much I'm sure of, because we will never run out of gas. We could fly this thing all over the world, we'll still have the same exact amount of gas in there. I believe that is in the process of changing. With that mod that I mentioned earlier for the Cessna 172, it does take into consideration how much gas you've got, or how much fuel is actually flowing to the engine, like your mixture control. I don't believe you can yet lean or enrich mixture, but I'm pretty sure that's probably something that's coming. So we've also got the engine systems, which will tell you what's going on with the engines. Pretty self-explanatory. Electrical system seems to be what it defaults to normally. And the doors system. Doors are not implemented, as far as I can tell, on this aircraft. I think the only aircraft that currently has opening and closing doors is the Cessna 172. However, hopefully they'll make that happen at some point in time in the future. For now, we'll put it on fuel system and pretend like we're monitoring the gas. Okay, let's see. How far did we get? Alright, we're just on the eastern side of the bay and we're just over 15,000. Okay, I'm going to lower our pitch a little bit more here. Roughly about 1,500 feet per minute. Actually more like 1,000 feet per minute. That's fine. That should be fine, because we've got a little ways to go before we get to where it says our top of climb should be. Now while that's going on, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change our heading bug to heading 180, since we know that's going to be our runway heading when we actually come into Tahoe. There we go. That should be it. Yep, heading 180. I don't think... well, I guess there is a way to start the timer on this thing. I wasn't sure that there was, so I kind of left it alone. To be honest with you folks, I don't really use the timer. I don't have much of a need for a timer. I can keep track of time just based on the UTC time that's default in Aerofly FS2. Okay, everything looks good. Looks like our trim is automatically changing, so this is great. And we're almost past 18,000. Now normally whenever you get to 18,000 feet, you're going to set it to standard barometric pressure, which is of course 29.92 or 1013 if you prefer. However, this sim does not yet model real-world weather, so as a consequence it also does not yet model real-world barometric pressure. It's always 29.92. Okay, so we're at Croix Waypoint, and we still got a little ways to go to top of climb. Something tells me before we get to Sacramento, we will actually get to top of climb, because we really don't have much further to go to get there. We're at 18.4 right now. This is going to be a short hop for the most part. I think the longest portion of it is going to be lining up and landing. But as soon as we get up to cruise, I'll pull us up to about 250 knots. And yeah, it should be a really short hop before we reach top of descent. I am hoping at some point in time they can implement the functionality of the CDUs here, but obviously that's not a thing right now. The beep that you just heard is of course our 1,000-foot warning before we get to 20K. And since it's doing that, that tells me that it should automatically trim us out to be level flight by the time we get there. So I'm going to let it do its thing. I gotta say, it's a beautiful morning here in California. Aerofly FS2 does get a lot of things right, but obviously, like I said before, there's still a lot more work to do. I still haven't figured out if the areas of the world that we do not get, if they at least have some kind of an orthographic map on there, a la Google Earth, and maybe it just doesn't have any 3D textures or anything, or 3D objects. I do know, however, that this particular sim, you can also get the add-on programs for developers that will help you to create content for the sim. So like if you wanted to create aircraft or you wanted to create scenery. Sounds familiar, right? That's exactly what X-Plane 11 does too, with their WED program and their plane maker. Well, this program has that as well. I might be experimenting with that. If I find it easy to use, then I might just start working on Pennsylvania the same way that I did in X-Plane 11, which I still need to continue my X-Plane 11 series, so at some point in time that's going to be coming. But we'll see how that all works. Oh, here's our flap speed, by the way. So you'll notice that flaps 5 is 200 knots, flaps 10 is 181, flaps 15 is 172, and flaps 35, which is full flaps, is 158. We're going to need to keep those in mind when we come down. Gear has to come down below 215 knots. So we'll try to bear that in mind as well. Now I'm sure you will have noticed by now, if you've been watching this entire video, that you're seeing this widescreen format. That's another really cool thing that I learned about Aerofly FS2. You'll remember that my first video, I gave you the standard VR format where you're seeing it out of my one eye. The way that this sim is coded, you can actually see on your main monitor, or if you only have one monitor, your only monitor, at 1080p, what's going on in the Oculus Rift. Now, from what I've been able to gather, it's actually tracking my left eye, or the left eye view, but it's giving you a 1080p view, which is ideally what I've been looking for as far as recording with VR. The only thing is, none of the other sims seem to do that. I can't get War Thunder to do it, I can't get FSX to do it, I can't get DCS to do it, which is why you've been seeing that weird format from my right eye only. That's using this program called the Oculus Mirror, which comes with the Oculus Rift. It's like one of the tools that you can use. Okay, I need to pay attention to our speed. So I'm going to pull the props back to those two arrows in the center. Right there should be good. And we'll also throttle back a sec here because I want to stay around 250-ish. I am also going to change our speed bug now, so we'll left click on that and we'll raise the speed bug up. Okay, so I want 250 right there. And we'll see if we can get the speed down there. Now, to my recollection, I do not believe this aircraft has an actual auto throttle. There's what I told you before about the IAS, which helps you as far as climbing, but that's just about all that it does. It doesn't really help as far as keeping your speed constant, the same way like a Boeing or an Airbus would. So we'll have to manually control it, and that's one of the reasons why I put the prop pitch back, and you'll notice that I'm pulling the throttle back as well to try and ease us back to about 250 knots. I think that should be considerably fast enough for us. It's really not going to take us too long to get there. You'll notice for Sacramento, we're already about 9 nautical miles away. And once we pass Sacramento, we really only have one more waypoint before it's time to come down. So yeah, short hop. And look at that California countryside. Look at all those farms. That is awesome. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that I love, and this is the kind of stuff that I think really gives me hope for Aerofly FS2. This I like. And you can actually see Sacramento's airport directly ahead too. If you look in the center of the lens flare there, the green and red circles, yeah, you'll see it. Okay, speed 250. Okay, I'm going to push the throttles up just a touch here. And that should hold us right around 250-ish. 4 nautical miles away from Sacramento's VOR, and you can already see top of descent appearing at the very top of my MFD, or my ND if you want to call it a navigation display. I believe this thing also has weather, if I'm not too mistaken. The controls for the MFD are all over here. The center button on the top row should be the weather. You'll notice it puts a little box up there. If we did have inclement weather, it would show up in here. And as I've mentioned before, this sim does not have that. The most you can do is put a lot of cumulus clouds and cirrus clouds up and all over the place. So we'll turn that off. TCAS is also modeled, however, we don't have traffic either. There is no AI traffic, so really it's kind of pointless to have a TCAS system in here. But we'll keep it on anyway, just to play around with it. The other two are data and format, and I have not really experimented with that to figure out what those do. It's really not that important for me to figure out. It's not that critical to me flying the aircraft. Oh, look at that river. That's pretty cool. I'm still a huge proponent of them actually making physical water. I do not like the fact that they use the orthophotos for the water as well. I'm glad they've at least gotten it flat, but in all the sims that I've ever flown in, water is supposed to be water. It's got to have its own texture, so I don't know how much of an impact that will have on this sim, but it's something that I would like to see them take care of. So if there are any devs watching for Aerofly FS2, that's my major bit of feedback, because I'd love to see real water in this thing. And everything that comes with it. Maybe seaplanes? Possibly. Okay, so Colombe waypoint is about 31 nautical miles away, so top of descent is coming quickly. You can already start to see the mountains that are currently dividing us from Lake Tahoe. So we should be there shortly, and I'm going to treat you to a little bit of outside camera work. that actually brings me to another point. The views, the actual camera views. There are several different views that each aircraft comes with, some more than others. I've already shown you the co-pilot view, which I'm going to switch to right now. So yeah, as you can see, we've got our backup pilot here that likes to take my seat the moment I get out. But I think there's still a little bit of work to be done on the Dash 8 because there's no cabin view. I'm going to show you what the next view consists of. You've got your pedestal view here, which of course you can see the overhead and the pedestal. And then it goes to this view. Where are we? Uh-oh! We are outside the aircraft. Why are we outside the aircraft? Especially since I can look in here. And well, will you look at that? They fully modeled the interior of the aircraft. Or at least it's fleshed out enough to where we could have a camera view inside looking out. Why don't we? You see what I'm saying here, folks? And then we have some other views. There's one behind the port side engine. We can also see the starboard side engine. A little bit further out. It really gives you a sense of scale of this aircraft. This is what I would call the traditional Bell Geo landing cam view. So it's behind the one gear. We will not be using this today. I'm going to be doing my landing from the virtual cockpit. I have enough problems trying to land this thing. And there's an overhead view for you and a nice lake with fake water. And then it's back to the cockpit. Now the same holds true for exterior views as well as the, I guess like the tower views and all of that kind of stuff. You can cycle through all of them, just like you're probably familiar with if you've been around flight simulators for any length of time. Needless to say, each aircraft has a different setup when it comes to the views. The only views that are common are the exterior views that I've been showing you and the tower views and so on, which I don't think I've shown you. I might have shown you at the end of the last video, possibly. I don't even remember at this point. I do, however, know that we are getting close to top of descent. So, for this descent, real quick, here's how we're going to do this. You can see the mountains directly ahead. We need to get over them. So our first step descent is going to be to about 15,000 feet. Much lower than that, and we could run into some problems. Once we've passed that major mountain ridge, we'll need to bring it down to about 8,000 feet. Landing elevation for Tahoe is roughly around 6,800 or 6,900, almost 7,000. So if we bring it down to 8,000, we might be a little bit below glide slope, but I should be able to compensate for that. So here's how we're going to do that. We will go ahead and put on the altitude select, and we'll just start dumping this down to 1,500. Now I'm going to manually control the vertical speed, so I'm going to click that. And we are just about at top of descent now, so we'll bring it down to about minus, let's go with minus 1,500. I'm going to put our throttle to flight idle. That way we'll also start losing a bit of airspeed. Remember this flaps chart, because we're going to be referencing that once we actually are over Lake Tahoe and start making our approach, which you can start to see at the top there. We're heading to the SWR waypoint. I should also change my speed bug, so I'll set up some reference speeds. For now, we'll put it down to about 200. There we go, right there should be good. This thing does have an approach hold if there is an ILS procedure that's pre-programmed into the sim, because remember, we can't use the FMCs or even a GPS for that. But as long as it's programmed into the sim, it will catch the glide slope and localizer, and it will bring you down the way that it's supposed to. Me, I'm a glutton for punishment. So I might be doing this manually and keeping an eye on our glide slope. At least that's the plan. We'll see how well that works. Now, one thing I did neglect to do was to turn on our smoking or no smoking signs. It looks like they're on by default. So the fasten seatbelt sign is on and no smoking sign is on. Okay, so we're good to go there. I don't have to worry about it. Alright, we're at 17,000, so reminder, if this were real world or real world weather, we would be setting our barometer right now. We'd probably be talking to the tower or whichever center is in charge of this area, getting our barometric pressure. We do not need to worry about that here though. Another funky thing I've noticed with this aircraft is even though we got a top of descent, you'll notice it has a TOC on there, top of climb. I don't know why that is, but I don't think that is correct. It should only have one top of climb and one top of descent. We're already descending, so we're good to go. In fact, we should be at 15,000 in a moment. I'm going to increase our throttle a little bit here because I want to keep us right around 200. And I'm going to keep our prop pitch exactly as it is until we're on approach. And then we'll pull it back up to full prop pitch because we're going to need it there for when we have to engage the thrust reversers. This thing can definitely stop in a short space of time, or short distance actually. So hopefully I'll be able to show that to you once we land. Alright, 15.3, 15.2, there we go, 15,000, alright. Altitude. Okay, it didn't automatically do it this time. It's possible that that is just user error. Like I said, it's been a while since I've flown the Dash 8, so we're going to call that one my bad. But I do need to give it a bit more throttle here. Like I said, we're going to keep it around 200. This thing can decelerate relatively quickly, so I'm not worried about going too fast or coming in too hot because we will be able to bleed off that speed in record time. And we've really only got about 19 or 18 nautical miles until our next waypoint before we start heading out over the lake, which incidentally you should be able to see directly ahead, just past that ridge. That is the reason why we're only down to 15,000. We should be able to bring it down to about 14,000 or maybe even 13,000, but just to be on the safe side, I kind of like to have that little buffer. And we can also take a look at it from outside. Okay, so we're almost there, folks. We are almost to Tahoe. Alright, speed's starting to creep up a little bit, so I'm going to pull the throttle back some more. And for flaps 1, we need to be below 200 knots. Flaps 2, 181. Flaps 3, 172. Flaps 4, 158. So 200, 181, 172, 158. Try to remember that. There'll be a pop quiz after. I'm totally kidding, there's no pop quiz. Okay, spoilers are currently in flight position, which is where they should be. Lights are currently off, which is fine. Our cabin pressure should be starting to come back down. I still can't quite tell if this thing is working or not. Huh. But I do have it set properly on the right hand side where it says cabin altitude, so we're just gonna go over that. Okay, since we're pretty much on approach, or beginning our approach, I'm gonna zoom this in all the way. Alright, this is the ridge that we need to make it over. Once we are over this ridge, we can bring this thing down. You'll notice we've already got a glide slope here too, so we're actually at the proper altitude for that. Truth be told, I'm not sure if it is capturing that glide slope just yet. Alright, let's do our altitude select. Bring it down to about 8,000. Like I said, I know that's a little bit low, but I think we can work with it. Alright, we are not currently over that ridge just yet. It's still directly ahead of us. But we should be turning to the right in a second, so I think I can afford to have us start coming down. Alright, let's try VNAV. Feet per minute. We should be in the turn before we hit that. Oh, there we go. We're turning now. I'm also going to bring our speed down in preparation for flaps, because on this leg here, which is kind of like our base leg, we're going to start wanting to drop the flaps. So flight idle there. Actually going to bring our props down to the minimum. That'll kind of help us slow down as well. And now that that's happening, I can afford to drop us a little bit lower down. So let's go to about 1,800 feet per minute down. So I want a pretty sprightly descent because there's our airport right at the southern end of the lake there. It's kind of like a time is of the essence thing. Alright, so we've got about 12 miles to come down to about 8,000 feet. There we go, we're safely past the ridge, so yeah, we should be good. I might pull us down a little bit more aggressively here, so let's go down to minus 2,000 feet per minute. You can see the glide slope marker starting to come up. I'm going to take the liberty of turning the lights on now, so taxi lights and landing lights. Okay, so our lights should be on currently. We're just about getting ready for the landing. You can see the airport right there. like I said, one of the things that I can do is I can set up an approach hold, and then I can just take off the autopilot just before we touch down. I'm thinking that might be a smart move on my part, but we'll wait till we get down to the proper altitude before we go ahead and do stuff like that. Alright, right about now we are on the glide slope. We're just below 9,500. We do need to get below 200 knots before I can start lowering flaps. So as soon as that takes place, such as right now, we'll go ahead and drop to flaps 1. Okay, there we go, flaps 1. Our speed select again, and we'll bring everything down to about 150. That's going to be the speed I'm shooting for on this approach. Okay. Alright, thank you so much. I'm going to put us on approach hold now. And start dropping to flaps 2. Okay, that sound is indicating that we need gear, so we'll go ahead and bring the gear down. Okay, so we now have gear down. We'll keep it around 150. We're currently set to approach hold, so it'll start pitching us down once it gets to where we need to be. So flaps 3. Pull the props back up to full pitch. That way we don't stall. So we're going to manually control our speed because, like I said, there is no auto throttle. And we'll let the aircraft take care of the vertical aspect of it, as well as lining us up on this runway. So yeah, there's Tahoe dead ahead, and we are perfectly on glide slope. So I'm going to give us our last notch of flaps here before we get too fast. We really don't need it, but they say luck favors the prepared, so I'm going to go with it. Like I said, this thing will bleed speed quickly, so you'll notice I already dropped to about 138 knots. Alright, now at this point in time, since I know we're lined up, I'm going to take it off of autopilot altogether. We'll start bringing her down because we need to now catch that glide slope. So we'll keep an eye both on the PFD and the MFD, as well as the runway directly ahead of us. Trying to keep about the same angle here. If need be, I can trim us up. We are starting to go a little bit off course here. That's partly because of the fact that I set the winds to about 280 degrees. And since we're now landing on a heading of 180 degrees, naturally that now means that we've got a crosswind. Well, yeah, we should be able to handle this. Make sure we're all lined up here. Okay, we're back on glide slope. So we'll just hold this speed here as well as this descent angle. In landing this aircraft, you do not want to put the throttle to idle. 1,000. Alright, there's our annunciator guy. He says 1,000. Looks like we're properly lined up. Let's make a quick look outside and verify. looking like we're now below the glide slope. And we're still being pushed to the left, so we got to kind of crab to the right here. The moment we touch down, the spoiler should go out. We're a little low, so I'm going to trim us up some. We do have to make it over those trees as well, so here we go, folks. We're going for broke. Flight idle.
40, 30, 20, 10.
And we're down. Let's get that reverser on. We did miss our turnoff just there, but that's okay. We're going to pull this back to the minimum. And we'll taxi off right here. So there you go, folks. Welcome to Lake Tahoe, where the temperature is probably a little bit nippy. But other than that, we're doing fine. So let's get those landing lights off. We'll leave the taxi lights on. Strobes, we're going to change you back to the beacon. And I'm thinking we're just going to park right over by those hangars. So we'll swing out to the left a bit. Hey, look at that. There's a helicopter there. See, this is what I was telling you in the last video. They've got static models of helicopters. As a matter of fact, I recognize that one. That's a Eurocopter. That's the same as my Bellicopter. Yet, there's no flyable ones just yet. Hopefully, you will be able to fix that at some point in time. Okay, right here seems good, so we'll pull it to a stop and parking brake on. Okay, like I said, welcome to Tahoe, folks. And we're just going to power down. There's no point going through the entire shutdown sequence, so we'll do this the easy way by feathering our prop, putting our throttle to disconnect, and there we go. Now I will take the liberty of turning off all of these lights here, and of course everything's going to beep at me, but that's okay. Alright, we'll also turn off our pitot heaters, which we've had on the entire time, and our AC. AC is off, generator is off. Okay, good deal. Alrighty, folks, so there you go. That is my second look, I guess you would say. We've been using the Dash 8 Q400 in Aerofly FS2. And I just kind of wanted to show you this one because this is an example of how this sim is getting closer and closer to being officially study level. I would say they did a pretty decent job. I mean, there's obvious areas of improvement, which I've mentioned throughout the video. But yeah, if you were ever wondering if the devs for Aerofly FS2 are on the right path, wonder no more. They are. So yeah, that'll do it for me. And thank you as always for watching. This has been BellGeode. I've been flying in Aerofly FS2. And we'll probably be back with some more goodness as I show off some more new and interesting things that they have to offer in this simulator. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I will catch you on the next one. Ciao!